Good morning, Morai v'Rabotai, Bruchim Abayim. We are continuing on Mesechet Avodah Zarah, and we are on Daf Ayin, Amud Bet, 12 lines down from the top of the Amud. Hahi Mesovita. Today's Amud is being learned L'schut Refuah Shelema of Rachel Simcha Bat Nahid, Yasamin Bat Sarah, Shahram Shalom Ben Turan. Should all have Refuah Shelema. Amen.
Amen.
So we actually read a few lines from Hahi Mesobita. We're just going to go back because the Hemshech of the Gemara is really connected with this. So the Gemara speaks about a wine seller, a woman that was wine seller. Hahi Mesobita. The Masrala Iklida Maftecha le Ovedet Kochavim. She gave over the key to the Otzrot Yayin, to her store that keeps all the barrels of wine, to her friend who is a Goyeta, who is a Ovedet Kochavim. So now the question is, well, she has the keys. She could go wherever she wants. She could lock herself in there. She could open the barrel. She could pour the barrel. She could do whatever she wants. See, she has the keys. Does that render all this store pasul and all the yayin nesech, or is that fine because it's just the key? So says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Amar Rabbi Lazar, Uvda hava b'midrasha. This actually was a case that was discussed in the Beit Midrash. Ve'amru, and they said the psak is everything is mutar because lo masra lah ela shmirat mafteach bilvad. She didn't tell her, go check on my store, and here's the key, that allows her with an excuse, a legitimate excuse to go inside the store. She's just like, I'm traveling, I don't want anyone to steal my mafteach, here's the mafteach, keep it safe. If she would be found in the store at any given moment, she would be nitpeset keganav. She would be like a thief, because she had never been allowed to go use that key. She's keeping the key for her, that the key should be safe. Not that she's allowed to go and use the key to open the store. If she would be found by anybody in the store, she would be nitpeset keganav. And therefore, we're not choshesh, we're not concerned that this goyeta, this ovedet kochavim, is going to actually go to the store. She has no excuse to be there, and therefore she will never go there. We're not concerned that she's going to use the key actually to go open the door and go inside. It's a simple logic.
Take the key with you.
Whatever it is that she... Kasha for Maise.
It's a key to someone, there's an implied consent.
It's not implied consent at all. You're telling her, I don't want you anywhere close to my store. I'm just giving this for you for safe keeps. Whatever it is, I'm going swimming, I'm going to whatever it is that I can't keep the key with me, I'm giving make the case. Says the Gemara. Amar Abaye. Abaye says, I found this in actually a Mishnah or a clear Braita. Amar Abaye afanana mitanina. I could bring a proof for this halacha from a Tanaic source. Says the Gemara. Ha-moser Maftehot le'am ha'ares taharotav teorot. Imagine you have your storage house with all of your taharot, and you are a chaver, you're a person that keeps tumah v'tahara, and your good friend is am ha'aretz, and he's not careful in tumah v'tahara, so he's deemed to be tameh, can't touch your taharot, but you want to leave your key with them. So says the Gemara, if you gave the key to your otzrot, to your storage house, to the amharetz, then the Mishnah says in Taharot, your produce, your Taharot are all good. Taharotav tehorot. We're not concerned that he's going to go into your storage house because he's not allowed to. You're just giving him the key to safekeep. Lefi shelo matzar lo ela shmirat mafteach bilvad. You just gave him the job of safekeeping your mafteach. So says Abaye wants to make a bridge connecting the Mishnah in Taharot with our case of Yain Nesech. Says Abaye, Hashta Taharotav Teorot Yain Nesech Mibaya. Even Taharot will be remaining pure and tahor Yain Nesech should be Kol Sheken. Gemara says, wait a second. Are you implying that Yain Nesech is less of a chidush than Taharot? Taharot is a bigger thing than Yain Nesech? Lememra the Taharot alimi miyain Nesech? You want to suggest that? Gemara says, of course. Why? The Itmar, because we learned Chatzer shechalakah b'msipas. If you have a courtyard that two people live around the courtyard, like we have discussed this many times, the way the houses of the time of Chazal was, you entered from a maboy, from a small alley, you would enter a courtyard, and around the courtyard were built rooms and houses, and everybody used the courtyard for whatever they used. For animals that were there, they would wash things. That was the courtyard. So now you have a courtyard, you have a Talmid Chacham living on one side, you have a Amaretz living on the other side, and they put some divider in between, in the middle of the Chatzir. Now the divider is not something very tall, it's something, actually quite short, but it's clear that it's the division between the two domains of the Amharitz and the Chaver. Now, the question is, can the Chaver, the Talmid Chacham, put his Taharot outside, even though that the Amharitz, technically speaking, could come there and touch them over the Mechitza, over the divider? Do we say that we are concerned that he's going to do that? Or do we say, no, it's clear that it's a division there, and division is enough that he's not going to bump into it and pass and go by mistake touch something, unless he really wants to, and we're not concerned about that. How do we gauge this situation? So it says the Gemara, if you have a misipas, if you have this short divider between the reshut of the Amaretz and the Chaver in the same Chatzer, Amar Rav Taharotav Temeot. Rav says, it's not good, no good. We're concerned that the Amaretz is going to come, reach out, and touch the Taharot of the Chaver, and therefore you deem them to be Tameh. Ube Oved Kochavim, or even go there maybe to his part of Chatzer, and therefore we are concerned. Ube Oved Kochavim, but says the Gemara, by Oved Kochavim, the same scenario, same exact setting. Instead of putting his taharot out there, if the Talmid Chacham, the Chaver, puts his wine there in the Chaser, and the Amaretz could technically reach them, the wine is all good. It's no problem with it. If the Oved Kochavim would be there, not the Amaretz, but the Oved Kochavim would be there, on the other side, the wine of the Jew would be fine. So you see from here, which one is more chamur? Taharot or Yain Nesech? Same scenario. Taharot would be, we are choshesh that Taharot are tameh, but by Yain Nesech, we're good. So it says, the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan, of course, is more mekel than Rav, that even by Taharot, af Taharotav Tehorot. In the case of Amharetz and Talmid Chacham, Rabbi Yochanan disagrees with Rav. And he says, even in that case of Taharot, when you have a mesipas, when you have a short divider in between the Chatzer, we're not concerned that the Amaretz came and touched the Taharot of the Chaver, and therefore everything is fine. So says the Gemara, Metive, they asked in the Beit Midrash the following question. Now we're going to spend some lines in the Gemara discussing the Machloket Rav and Rabbi Yochanan, right? When we have domains of a Amaretz and a Chaver, a Talmid Chacham, next to each other, whether be it the Chatzer, the case that we just had right now, whether it be the roofs, the rooftops that they used to use, actually the rooftops for different stuff, when and when not are we concerned that the Taharot of the Chaver becomes Tameh because of the reach and the possibility of the Amharetz coming around or putting their hands on the Taharot? So says the Gemara. They asked the question, a kasha in the Beit Midrash. Imagine you have a chatzer inside another chatzer. That means you have to come from the door outside in the street. You have to first go through domain A to get to domain B, right? And who is in domain A, in the outside, is the Am Haaretz. And inside is the Talmid Chacham. So does the Am Haaretz have any reason to go in domain B? No, because he has his entrance. The Talmid Chacham, domain B has a right and a reason to go to domain A because that's the only way he exits and enters. Right? But domain A has no rights to trespass in domain B. So if the domain A outside, the outsider, the chitzona is the Am Haaretz, and the inside is the chaver, is the Talmid Chacham. So oto chaver, that Talmid Chacham, shoteach sham perot, maniach sham kelim, he has no fear of Am Haaretz coming in, so he could put his wine there, he could put all his taharot, his kelim, his vessels, everything he could put out there in the chatzer. Even though that Am Haaretz could literally reach out his hand and touch the kelim or the taharot, we're not concerned that he's going to do that. We're not going to be worried that he's going to do it, and therefore this is a kasha to the Rav. So remember, Rav says if you're side by side in a chaser, and you have a mesipas, you have a short thing, we are concerned that he's going to touch. We just brought a case that seems to be identical to that, and therefore it's a kasha to Rav, because this Braita says it's mutar. If the Talmid Chacham is in the penimi, Am Haaretz is in the chitzona, we're not concerned that he's going to go in and reach out and touch the taharot. So Amar Harav, Rav says, no. You don't understand. This is very different. Shani hatam shenitpas alav keganav. When you have an inside-outside setting, it's very awkward for the Am Haaretz to be found anywhere next to the inside, because this is a private domain. When you have domain A, domain B, and they're inside one another, domain B is completely private property. If you're seen in there, you are like a thief, because you have no reason and no excuse to be there, ever. But when you have side by side, it's the same chaser, you put a little thingy there, it's a little short divider, it's really the same chaser. It looks like the same chaser. It's much less awkward socially if you are, you reached out and he finds you touching, say, I'm stretching. It's the same domain. It's like really the same chaser. It's not like a cement wall. It's like a little thingy to just make a sign. Therefore, socially, it looks much easier for him to have his hand stretched to the other side than when you have really someone's house and your hand is into the window of someone's house. So that's why, says Rav, it's different. Says the Gemara Tashma, another proof here. Now the other way around this time. This time a proof, perhaps for Rav against Rabbi Yochanan. Tashma, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Gago shel chaver lemala migago shel Am Haaretz. Imagine now you have two houses, right? Imagine it, and the rooftop of one of them is slightly higher than the rooftop of the other one. Now, in time of Chazal, the rooftop was one of the most used areas of the house. That's why you had the chiyuv of ma'akeh putting there, because people used it. People lived there, they slept there in the warmer seasons. They dried up their fruits. They did all kinds of different things on top of the aliyah, on top of the roof. Now, you have the roofs that one of them is slightly higher than the other one. Now, the question is, if I could put my taharot as a chaver up here, when the Am Haaretz is down here, and he may or may not be able to touch what I have over here when he stands on his roof, right? So it says, the Gemara, Chasero, the gago rather of chaver lemala migago shel Am Haaretz, oto chaver, that chaver could be shoteach sham perot umaniach sham kelim, could put all of his taharot out there, fruits out there, could put his vessels and kelim up there. He's not concerned that the Am Haaretz is going to touch it. Ubilvad, says Rabban Shimon Gamliel, very important detail. Ubilvad shelo teheh yado shel Am Haaretz magad lesham. We talk about the case that the difference in height is such that the hand of Amaretz cannot reach it. Which would mean that if the hand of Amaretz could reach it, everything is tameh. Who is that like? Like Rav, against Rabbi Yochanan. Therefore, Kasha Rabbi Yochanan, says the Gemara. How does Rabbi Yochanan find himself in the Bet Midrash over here? Amar Lacha Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, that's very different. Shani Hatam, the itle le ishtamuti. On top of the gag, when you're talking about two different houses, right? On top of the gag, again, gag is tall. I mean, there's no roof on top of it. So you may be building a room up there on the gag. And that's always an excuse. You have to understand the real estate regulations of the time of Chazal. So if someone comes and finds you stretching your hands like this on top of the roof, and you're caught, you could always say, well, I'm measuring with my hands to see how many hands this is. I'm building a house or room here. I was thinking of expanding. My son-in-law is moving in, right? You could always say something. Therefore, says Rabbi Yochanan, that's very different than you being in the Chatzer. Chatzer is not, you can't build anything in the Chatzer. What you could do on top of the roof, that was the norm. So therefore, Rabbi Yochanan says, Shani hatam di'itla leishtamuti, memar amar, he says, imtsuri kam memsarna. I am measuring to build. Tashma. Another proof. Now the other way around. Gago shel chaver betzat gago shel am haaretz. Now you have two rooftops, exactly same level. So this is very much like the chatzer that we had down there, the actual machloket Rabbi Yochanan and Rav. Oto chaver shoteach sham perot umaniach sham kelim. Right? The Braita says the chaver could comfortably put his fruits out, put his vessels out. Even though that the Am Haaretz could actually literally touch it. So this is like a clear, open and shut proof for Rabbi Yochanan. Right? This is like, you can't easily get around this. Kasha l'Rav. This is a bomb kasha on Rav. Amalacha Rav. Rav says, well, I'm not going to sweat this raya because, okay, this is a raya to Rabbi Yochanan. I agree. But Lav Ika Rabban Shimon Gamliel, I just brought to you, Rabban Shimon Gamliel, in the case of Gag, literally the previous case that we just brought, that Rabban Shimon Gamliel says it's only Taor if the hand of the Amaretz doesn't reach up there. And they're both talking about Gag. So therefore, says Rav, you see clearly that there is machloket between these two braitas. One of them is Rabban Shimon Gamliel, the other one is Tarakama. So I am like Rabban Shimon Gamliel, you're like Tarakama, and the world goes on. So that's the machloket that the Gemara brings over here. It says, Rav Ika Rabban Shimon Gamliel dekai kavati ana damri Rabban Shimon Gamliel. I hold like Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, and that really puts a cap on this machloket. It remains as machloket, and none of them is proven wrong. It seems to be machloket Tanaim that turned into machloket Amoraim of Rav on Rabbi Yochanan. Says the next Mishnah, Boleshet shenichnesa le'ir. If you have troops of soldiers that enter the city, now the rights of the king, when Shmuel Hanavi tells people about the rights of the king, even though that maybe some of them are not actually halachically binding, but one of the things that was understood, at least by the troops of the Goyim, the king had the right of taking whatever he wants, right? The Dina de Malchuta Dina type of thing. Well, not so simple like that, but whether halachically was binding or not, the way the Goyim did things is the king's troops, the king's army, when they came into any given city, they took whatever they wanted, they ate whatever they wanted, they never had to pay for anything. That was the king's, the king's troops. So if they come to city, and now their wines, they're in, you want to know what's this after they leave? What's the status of all these things? They could go anywhere and do anything. So what's exactly the halacha? So says the Mishnah, Beshat Shalom, depends. Really depends. If it's peaceful times, They're just passing through. They're not in war. It's not active war anywhere. They're just passing through town. That's shad shalom. Chaviot tuchot asurot. All of the open barrels of wine are deemed to be asur because if they came there, you would never know. They could just tip everything and drink and do whatever they want. Like, no one tells them boo. And they're not nitpas keganav. They have rights to do that. Whether it's halachic rights or not, that doesn't make a difference because that's what they do. So says the Gemara, but all the closed, sealed chaviyot are mutar. Why? Because if the soldiers of the king would open a barrel, they don't feel obliged to close it afterwards. They don't have to pretend that they're nice and go seal it again. They just open, they take whatever they take, and they leave. So if you find something closed, that means it was not opened. And therefore, it will be mutar even b'shtia. So it says the Mishnah, but b'shat, that's only in peaceful times. B'shat milchama, it's a whole different story. B'shat milchama, elu be'elu mutarot. Everything is mutar. Why? No one has time for drinking wine and pouring wine. They're in a war. They're running. So whatever they have, they have. Whatever they don't have, it's not that they're going around drinking wine and partying. So therefore, it's mutar. So it says the Gemara. This is probably one of the shortest Gemaras you've ever had. 2-line Gemara. Gemara says, Urmini. Wait a second. We have a Gemara in Mesechet Ketuvot. That when you have troops conquering a city, even though that it's active time of milchama, it's kibush, they're actually in the process of conquest of the town, all of the wives of Kohanim that are asur to their husbands. Why is this, by the way? Because a woman that beratzon is mezana. If a woman cheats on her husband, beratzon, then she's asura lebala. She becomes prohibited to her husband. But if she is ne'ensa, if she is raped, she's forced, then she stays muteret, she stays permissible to her husband. Unless, of course, her husband is a Kohen. Right? In the case of a wife of Kohen, she ne'ensa, she becomes asura. So we ought to assume that all any of the wives could have been violated, and therefore they become those whose husbands are Kohanim. They all become asur to their husbands. So wait a second, says the Gemara. I thought they have no time for anything else. If they have it's active wartime, they have no time for anything. Why do they become asur? You said they don't even have time for pouring wine. Right? So says the Gemara, no, you don't understand. They don't have time for pouring wine, but there's always time for zenut, right? The Harav zenut is very different than any other Yitzhara in the world. That's the whole thing. Of course, the parasha of Yefatoar, that when you go to the Milchama, and so on. Therefore, says the Gemara, Amar Rav Mari, lenasech penai. Yes. To go party and have wine and pour and so on, there's no penai. But leave all yesh penai. For Bila, there's always time, and says the Gemara, therefore it would be not no stira between the Gemara in Ketuvot and our Mishnah over here. The wine would stay mutar when it is active wartime. Bezat Hashem will continue to start the next Mishnah in the days to come.
There's no remedy.